Alan Murray Hayden, Head of Airport Passenger and Security Products at IATA. Welcome to SABC News.
Thank you very much. It's wonderful to be with you.
So tell us about the IATA Travel Pass. Why was it developed and what problem is it seeking to solve?
Okay, the challenge we're facing with a relatively limited industry restart is that governments have done a wonderful job vaccinating their citizens and then issuing them a proof of vaccination. But the challenge we're seeing at the moment is that passengers are arriving at the airport and in some cases they're having to queue for hours to prove that they're vaccinated or they meet all the immigration regulations. If passengers are going to have to wait 4 or 5 hours at an airport, they're simply not going to travel. So that's really what the IATA Travel Pass is about.
So it's very much about addressing bottlenecks that you might experience at the airports. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, correct. So how it works is the passenger downloads the application. They create a digital version of their passport based on international standards. And they then get presented with the immigration regulations for their itinerary, both destination and any transit points. They can then go get tested, receive the test results on their phone. They can scan proof of vaccination, and once they have all of those different elements, we then run a check against what we call a thematic database, which is the Worldwide Rules database for immigration regulations, and we verify that they meet all of the COVID regulations for their destination. And if they meet all of those regulations, we give them what's called an OK to travel. And if they have that OK to travel, they can then send that to their airline, airport, or government, and that means that when they get to the airport, they don't need to queue for a couple of hours to prove it. And so in some ways, it gets them very much back to the way it was pre-COVID.
So is this app, the Travel Pass, is it a global tool right now? Is it available in all countries? Do airports need to sign up? Do governments need to sign up? Or is this something that can be independently administered to the individual seeking to travel?
It's based around airlines. So the airline is the one who signs up and then we integrate together with the airline systems. That being said, governments and airports can also come on board, but for them it's more a question of the passenger can actually share their data with those. So for example, a passenger could share their digital passport and their proof of vaccination with the immigration authorities. And what that means is that the immigration authorities can actually approve all these passengers. So when they arrive in that destination country, they don't need to queue up at immigration and show all their documents again. They can just go straight through and leave the airport.
So the app isn't brand new, right? It's been around for a couple of months. To what extent have you encountered problems in terms of rollout with airlines that you've partnered with?
Probably the most difficult thing is that the immigration regulations have been so dynamic. Just to give you an idea, we would probably make about 250 updates to the immigration database per day. So what we've seen is that regulations have been changing so dramatically, but now things are beginning to settle down a little bit. And then in addition, we're also beginning to see immigration regulations being simplified and lifted a little bit. So what you're now getting is an opening up of international travel. So now is really the time for it. Up until now, there's been very limited travel. But if we want to have a sustained industry restart, we have to have solutions like this where passengers can do everything before they get to the airport. If they leave it to the airport, it's too late.
Final question for you. What's the big picture here, right? I mean, we hear so much about this being part of the broader economic recovery of the airline industry. This feeds specifically into that, not just to make it easier for people to travel, but there's an economic imperative here too.
Yeah, there's probably a medium-term and a long-term goal with this. The medium-term is really just to facilitate the industry restart, so get passengers flying again and also enjoying flying again and not being stuck at airports. But the longer-term vision behind this is what we call contactless travel. So getting back to what I said earlier on, passengers create a digital version of their passport. They also take a selfie, and the idea is that they can share their digital passport and selfie with airlines, governments and airports before they arrive at the airport. And what that means is that they can just flow through the airport looking at facial biometric cameras. So if you can imagine the way things will hopefully look in 2-3 years' time, when you arrive at the airport, you go to check-in or a self-bag drop, everything has been done. They've got a facial or they've got a camera which brings up all your details. When you go through immigration, you'll just look up at a camera and go through, the gates will open. When you go to a business lounge, again, facial biometrics, you'll just be able to walk straight through. And then when you arrive, self-boarding gates. So instead of having to show your passport and your boarding pass, you'll basically walk straight onto the plane. So that's the longer term goal. We want to provide a brilliant experience for passengers so they can literally walk from the curb the whole way through the airport experience and out the other end as well.
Is it key to be vaccinated to use this travel app, or is a COVID PCR test part of what you can upload?
The system handles vaccinations, it handles all different tests. And what's really important as well is that it's not just that we handle tests. We actually figure out what are the test requirements for the particular destination, and then we tell the passenger, for this destination you maybe need a PCR or a rapid antigen. So we handle not only test and vaccination, but also all the different subtypes of it.
Alan Murray Hayden, Head of Airport Passenger and Security Products at IATA. Thank you so very much indeed.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.